Hello, everyone, and this is another episode of Esoterics Today. I am one of our hosts, Amber Chamberlain, the Suburban Lightworker, and I have with us, of course, our illustrious Satara Lightbringer. Today, we are really thrilled to have a guest with us today who's going to talk to us all about dragons and dragon energy and connecting with dragons. It's a beautiful topic. Satara has indicated she has goosebumps talking about this and is excited. And in keeping with this last year, we have always intended to bring increasingly more guests to this show and to this conversation to really add more experience for you all with folks who are doing beautiful consciousness and healing arts work all across the world. Folks that you might not ordinarily have an opportunity to bump into, and just to give a little more exposure, a little more color to your own experience, a little more expansion to your experience. So to not delay any further, I would like to welcome to our show today, Aodaoin Hathaway. She is going to take us through the dragon experience. Good day, good morning. Thank you for being with us.
I am so happy to be here. Thanks for having me, girls. Amber and Satara, it's so much fun to be here, hang out, and talk about dragons.
Dragons. I certainly have a number of questions, but what I really like to do right away is give you the floor to talk to us about what are we talking about when we're talking about dragons. Let's jump off in the broad.
Straight in there. Well, dragons are multidimensional beings, just like ourselves. They're electromagnetic beings, which is one of the reasons why they are very attracted to the ley lines or to sacred sites. You know, the earth dragons, sometimes the water dragons will be there. But they also, they exist in all dimensions. So you've got galactic dragons, you've got elemental dragons, there are guardian dragons. Some are very interested in us, some are not. They are beings that have their own path of service or their own way of being in the universe, just as we do. And I view it very much as a collaboration with them. It's very much a collaborative relationship. They offer us a huge amount of wisdom and love and support. And, in return, we offer them our love, our gratitude, and bringing our service and our alchemical transformation into the world so that hopefully we leave it a different place than when we came.
Could you, for a moment, Aodaoin, speak to how literature and television movies have handled dragons now that you've had, you're certainly having a human life as we all are here. What's your feedback on that large segment?
I feel like it's changed significantly. Certainly growing up, it was very hard for me to find what I would have considered an accurate representation of dragon energy, because even from when I was very small, I was, very aware of the elementals, very aware of the elemental dragons. And in books, they're very often depicted as, or in the films that were made from the books, they're greedy, they hoard things, they're aggressive, they're very powerful, they're often vengeful. If you think of the sort of stereotypical dragon, it's a being of great power, often great wrath, and quite selfish, right? Now, this to me was never an accurate representation of the dragon energy. And in fact, if you look through all the cultures you know, from east to west, wherever, the dragons appear just like angels appear. You know, there are dragon stories just like there are angel stories. And to me, that representation said more about the humans and what they thought power was, and what they thought, great power meant being able to wipe out your enemies in one swoop. You know, it was that human corruption of the definition of power.
For
That yeah.
Yes, see.
Can I just add something? Very energies to draconian energies.
Yes.
Rather than dragon energies.
Yes.
I think that somewhere along the timeline, something's got a little bit blurred here, which is why I'm like, can I just step in at that one? Because it's like, so many people think of draconians as dragons. Mm-hmm. They have a very similar language in some of the dimensions, so I can understand how that can be crossed over. But after all, one of the things with dragons is their ability to be able to converse in any language. So therefore, because they're multidimensional, they have to, like ourselves, move in and out of language barriers depending on what they're working with and how they're working. So I think, as I say, I just wanted to just go, okay, let's just make sure people aren't getting the draconist and the dragons mixed up here.
I'm glad you brought that up, Sitara, because I do feel it's probably a more common misperception now than it would have been in the past, because people will talk about that draconian energy now in a way that just simply wouldn't have been in the consciousness before. Yeah. And I feel it's one of the things that when I start to talk to people about dragons, or working with people who want to work with dragons, I'm always very clear with them that, you know, and I feel that this is going to get more and more important to say as dragons enter the consciousness more, just like angels did. Like if you started talking about angels 30 years ago, people would be like, okay. Whereas now, you know, I talk to angels, Grant, you talk to angels, brilliant stuff, like fine. You were talking to your angel the other day, Grant. And I feel like the dragons, actually, it's going to get to that point. I could see 10 years down the road where it'll be, you know, you've got your guardian angel, your guardian dragon, your guardian unicorn. People are not going to blink, you know, it'll just become part.
Well, that brings me to another question I had that I wanted you to speak to, and Sitara, because what this show has done for the last year is position clearly the in many metaphors, if you will, we have been able to position what we know is happening on the planet, and I tend to mention, you know, whether we're talking about ascension dynamics, that's popular to use that phraseology, or great awakening, or, you know, Gaia's shift, or pulse, any of this stuff, all this, they're all referring to the same things, I think. And something that you mentioned when I asked about the history of dragon representation, and then C brought up a very good point. Dragon representation sounds, in the way you described it, was consistent with artificial matrix presentation, of how, you know, of co-option, or of the misrepresentation that the artificial matrix that's been around the planet for so long,
absolutely,
is done with all of this beauty and all of this power.
Yeah.
And I want to, because I'm going to come to the question to you, but I want to make a reference to what Sitara said. That's a very important discernment about a draconian energy and draconian presence. I do think those things have gotten fairly blended. So I'm so glad that you brought that piece up, because I think for people even on this show, that will help them kind of go, oh yeah, even search for it in your own thinking and in your own awareness where you might have done that.
I think it's one of the most important things, Amber, to clarify early on, and hold my hand up and say I didn't do it enough at the beginning, you know, but I'm always very clear now with people that there is and I do feel like actually having, just to get back to the book question, because I do love books, I do feel that when I went to start looking for children's books for my son when he was younger, with dragons in them, the representations of those dragons, it was a wide availability. So people had started to move away from that artificial matrix construct, had started to tap in more to that true dragon energy. And I don't think it was any coincidence that it started in children's literature, you know, because it's the children's authors who are and no disrespect to adult authors whatsoever. I mean, you know, I loved many of them, but you know, if you look at the great kids books, and even the illustrated kids books, there is a lightness of energy there for the bulk of them that is not necessarily prevalent in later. Now, well, I know we've wandered totally off topic there, but I just wanted to say that I do feel that representation is coming more into balance here, right?
I do, yeah. It is, and I do think it's definitely on topic in that at Esoterics Today, we are looking for that balance of the big picture and why we would bring a guest like you on a show like this today, because we do things like this very purposefully, I think, in our timing. All of this gets called to us at the right time, because the last thing I wanted to mention where you left off was to bring you further to, it was one of my questions, if you could speak to this. A few years ago, and then of course increasingly now more, I hear about the return of the dragon, that the dragons are back. We'll see in social media all these photos of the sky and the cloud formations and these beautiful or really amazing dragon formations in our skies. So this is what I was wondering, what information can you share with us that has made us more available to the energy, or the energy available to us? Can you talk about that a little bit? Here comes Satara's picture.
Oh, beautiful. That's absolutely gorgeous, Satara.
Yeah, we'll make sure to add this picture into our notes when we put it up.
Yeah.
But it talks about the journey here of the dragons and the balance of what they call the sun and the moon. So the male and female energy to merge to be able to be here in this presence now.
Now, of course, this calls up in me, it just calls forward, and my computer's just rucking up because it just called in, because I get this whole feeling that's a Lemurian, there's a Lemurian story in there. There's a Syrian story that presented, I have it all over me, and it had to come out. I could keep going, but you're killing me.
He is Sirius A, B, and C. Ustia kanaya tiaka, uratistinia kala, urata inia ha.
So this is there's what you have there. The Pleiades are somehow represented over to the others. So what you have here with us, Aodaoin, you're getting to know us here this way. And we expose these things out into our show. These things get really triggered up as we get into these kinds of So what just happened here? Could you put some of your interpretation and then the response about why the dragons now?
Why now is because we all agreed it. Why now? You know, we are here as part of our sacred contract, and some dragons are here for the same reason. It's bringing from my perspective, I feel it's rebalancing and realigning of the divine feminine, that unity with the divine masculine. And we can say, oh, the masculine has been in charge here for a very long time. Well, that's a corruption of the divine masculine. That's not an accurate representation of the divine masculine any more than the divine feminine has been allowed expression. So it's coming into this space of unity, and the old stuff is falling away, and it is chaos right now. It is chaos, and we knew it was going to be chaos, and that can be hard for these bodies to deal with, because we are immortal luminous beings. We've had many experiences. These bodies are part of us, but they're also part of a lineage that has lived here, that has a genetic memory, that has perhaps, especially for women, perhaps a trauma memory as well. So this chaos can be very challenging. It can feel very overwhelming. And so the dragons are here to support with that, to help to keep the balance. And they have a very embodied presence for non-physical beings, if I can sort of express that. The words don't quite make it clear, but if we were speaking about the fae, we were speaking about the she, and even the unicorns to a somewhat lesser extent, they have a more ethereal feel to them, whereas the dragons actually, especially the ones that have chosen to be here and to support us, first of all, have an enormous love for Gaia. They often, in my experience, will bring through that frequency of the divine feminine, of that, that galactic source energy. And they are nurturing that within the ley lines of Gaia herself, as a support for Gaia herself, for the four-legged and the finned beings and the winged beings who have, incarnated here and are having experiences sometimes totally at the mercy of the human collective, which is, could break your heart, and does break my heart. But that's partly why the dragons are here, is to give us that support. They're here to bring a balance back in, as we are. This is why I'm talking about this collaboration, and we're ready to do it. The balance is waiting for us. It's just waiting for us, and it may take a couple of generations. I always laugh, because they have really very little concept of the time thing, and working with them sometimes is very, very funny. It's like, guys, I can't get all this done this week, and they're like, why? Like time thing. So it may take a couple of generations, maybe. It might happen really fast. It so much depends on the free will, of course, of everyone who's choosing this. But for me, it feels like an incredibly joyful energy that is just waiting to come in. And I know it's tough for so many people right now, but it's the old structures that are falling away. And that's what the dragons are so good at clearing stuff. Like, they are so efficient. It's one of the things I love about them, because, I love sitting in meditation. I love walking in nature. I also really love filing, and getting things organized. So we work really well like that, because they're very efficient. Be like, this needs to clear, this needs to go. What's the most effective way that we can work with this? Whether it's with clients, with myself, if I'm asked to work with a piece of land, which I would never do unless I'm asked, but just to be in that space with them is incredible, to bring that frequency of the divine feminine through.
Beautiful. So are dragons keepers of a specific vibratory resonance, or in other words, does each dragon, so I guess that was the question, is their specialties? And you sort of spoke to that at the beginning. And Satara, when you were talking before we started recording, you were talking about the dragons and your experience now. and their specializations and their color. Because I know we understand on this show, just so you know too, how we positioned this year, the understanding about color rays and about vibratory resonance. I'm quite a technician. I mean, I'm more apt to talk about architectural, how should I say, molecular structure, quantum mechanics, this Messerian aspect that likes to teach from that perspective. So we've really put that in position here in the show. So when you say that they heal or they assist and support or they, help to remove something or so forth. So are they specific keepers, or what's your experience with that?
In my experience, yes, there are there are definitely different groups of them. I do. It does seem like it's a preference on their part. I would say the sort of fundamental dragon frequency. There's a certain baseline for that, but then, just like, we all have we might have a favorite color or a favorite place to be. There are dragons that have, I feel, evolved to be like, there's some that really have a strong affinity with fire. Okay, the fire dragons, right? Satara was sharing about that earlier. So they are, a dragon that you could call in if you need a really quick transformation on something. You could ask for a fire dragon's help, because they bring that real energy in. It's the fire. It's going to transform stuff. It's going to be fast, and it might be, a bit a bit brutal, right? So, but equally then, so say if I'm working with a client and they're maybe in a little bit of a more vulnerable state, a fire dragon is not going to be optimal to call in that moment, right? Because if they're already feeling raw, maybe fire is not the element there, right? So maybe it's water. Maybe a water dragon comes in, because they are also extremely helpful with transformation. If you think about what the Satara is showing, another water dragon eye, gorgeous. And you think about the transformation that water can achieve here. It just a gentle stream is going to make a transformation. Plus, our bodies are made up of so much water that they can work really well on a cellular level with us. They can work really well with that element on a cellular level for transformation.
I love that.
Yeah. So it really, and then there are the galactic dragons, which to me feel completely different to an elemental dragon who has spent time here on this planet, who has absorbed in some way the frequencies of the elements we have on this planet. The galactic dragons, like the dragons of the Pleiades, or I recently did a transmission with the dragons of Kuan Yin. They have a different frequency. They will bring through something different, just like working with different healers who hold different frequencies, right? There might be a time in your life when you need someone who's deeply, deeply connected with that galactic energy, because that is what you are missing in your own frequency. That's what's just calling to you. You're yearning for that. You need that balance. There might be a time then where you need to work with someone who holds a real divine feminine, the Gaia frequency. And that's going to help you to earth your energy so you can manifest your gifts here. So the dragons are the same. I mean, they're not the same, but it's a similar sort of,
it's a similar archetype.
Yeah. So it's that baseline frequency is dragon versus what Satara had brought up, the draconian. But within that, there are so many varieties, just like here, which is what is so beautiful about working with them. It's always fun to see who's going to pop up, and I do trust, if I'm working with someone, I always sit with it and see, and sometimes I'm really surprised because I know what they're coming to work with, and it might be, I think, oh, well, we definitely need a fire dragon today, and actually an earth dragon will show up, and it's always perfect because for whatever reason they needed to bring that earthing energy through. I don't often use the word grounding because there's something about that word to me that sounds very heavy, and that's my personal thing. But it's the earthing that brings us, rather than ground into the collective. It's like earth into the stellar heart of Gaia, because we're all stars, right? We're all our little star beings. And so star beings walking on a star,
I love that. It's interesting that you just mentioned about the construct of grounding, and there is, because in the human collective today, the construct of grounding there's a component that has also been inverted in an entrapment model, and we will have it in our foods. We will have it in there's so much that will ground us, like you're grounded to your teenager. There's something that's going to anchor that might be suitable to the first and second chakra, in the feet, so forth and below, but that do not resonate with above the solar plexus. There's a disconnect.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, and I realized I didn't touch on the color aspect, which I found just beautiful that you've been talking about it, because I feel like that's one of the most beautiful ways that people can connect with the dragons is through color. Because sometimes people will say, well, I don't see a dragon, because they expect to see, a dragon, right? And then I'll say, well, do you see a color? Do you feel a color? Because we all experience differently. And sometimes that's how dragons will show up for people, with that color ray. And it will always be a color that person really needs. It's always that, it could be that beautiful silver, or the gold, or the red for the power, or the earthing, or the green heart. It really is always the color, and it's a way that gets people out of their minds, because everyone can see or feel a color. It takes that sort of pressure off, and it's a way that the dragons will show what they are. And I've had people come and say, well, my dragon seems to have changed color. I'm like, well, do you change your hair color? Do you change your top? Yeah, sometimes they change color. It's okay. But notice the color then, because there's information there for you. They're showing you that color because of the nourishment and the support that it offers you, that color ray offers you.
Tara, did you have anything that you wanted to say at this point? Because I'm going to ask some more. I'm going to go to you, Adean, a little more personally, because one of the things, some of your background with dragons and your own childhood, because some of the listeners that we host here and that will be coming to these conversations increasingly are having their own awakenings, their own experiences, their own realizations, revelations of who they are and who they're primarily going to work with. As you were saying, sometimes you start here and then you would add. But Satara, was there anything so far that you wanted to kind of color in with us here?
The only stuff I was going to circle back around to was the ley line aspect of it, because I know that we've spoken a lot on the show. We've not done a show on it per se, but we have brought up the whole construct of the way that we've got the earth grids, cosmic grids, galactic grids, the interconnectivity between all dimensions and parallels. So we've kind of gone into that. But I was just smiling at how thick I can be, really, when I'm talking about ley lines. Because, I'll be the first to go, duh, yeah, okay then. What I've never spoken about on the show is dragons. And I know that you two ladies, we spoke briefly before we started the recording, and I've confessed that I have 3 here. A golden one, a red one, and a blue one. And then, of course, the word ley line came in, and I was like, yeah, okay. I now understand why I have 3 dragons, because I have 3 ley lines under my home. Now, I've lived here nearly 9 years, so like we're all in threes here, you know what I mean? But it's occurred to me the reason that there's 3 dragons, each are holding a ley line.
Yeah.
It's taken a random conversation today for me to go, duh, that together, because I'm so accepting of things. I would never have questioned why I would have 3 of them, because I accept I do.
Well, I mean, they are a bit like cats. You know, you rarely just end up with one.
Yes, I have 3 cats.
Yes.
One per dragon.
Or a dragon lady or a cat lady, they all kind
Yes,
of
they're kind of the same.
Yeah, they kind of just create. Yeah. So of course I've never queried it, because I'm not the sort to query. I think if a being of any nature wants to be here with me, I'm great with that. I don't care why. I'm just, if they want to be, that's great. It'll unfold when it unfolds, and it'll happen if it happens. If nothing happens and they just need to be on this particular point, that's great. It makes no difference.
Well, Satara, because now it's speaking a little more in depth to what Aodaoin was saying about, because you did mention ley lines, and I wanted to circle back and say, well, so are dragons keepers of ley lines? Is that what you had said?
Yeah, pretty much. They will each, if you think that no 2 ley lines have the same resonance.
Yeah.
You're part of a construct, but that construct is multidimensional and therefore multifaceted in its reason. So therefore certain beings are attracted to the energy of certain ones. This is why certain ley lines are full of fae, for instance, and another one will be full of, I don't know, dragons, or there'll be like trolls or Sasquatch or whatever going on. Different places attract different beings because of the ley.
Oh, well, thank you, sweetheart, for putting those 2 together, because now I understand more about vibratory resonance among ley lines and sort of responsibilities and duties and attractions to certain energetics along the organic matrix, because that ley lines are certainly what we're talking about when we talk about the organic Gaia's
Absolutely
matrix.
Yeah.
Oh, that's also fascinating. Man, I just love learning. And you're absolutely right, Aodaoin, that I will get caught up in almost in a romantic sort of swept away feeling, especially when I'm out in nature, with, wow, this place is super. And all the things I get to know while I'm in my body, I get almost like, woo, this is just trippy and fabulous. I mean, I will go through this like, I'll forget that when I'm more, have torpor in life. But then I'm reminded, wow, this is just amazing, because most beings, and I'm reminding our listeners, most beings are not embodied.
No.
And we are in a very special, first of all, we are magicians of the highest order to have been able to make the turns. And those of you who understand quantum mechanics will know this, to make the turns and twists required from A to B, zeros and ones, dots, whatever and the energetic encodement to be able to get embodied in this very heavy, dark dimension of the third, to take a light body and bring that into embodiment. It's tricky stuff. So everyone's very masterful. Anyway.
Absolutely. And this is, we do have the support. We couldn't do it without the support, whether we're aware of it or not. I mean, I watch people, especially here in Ireland, there is still a great respect for the land in most places. I'm not saying Irish people are amazing in every respect, right? No country can say that, but there is still a connection with the Shia, with the Fae. There are places where you don't walk there. That belongs to the fairies, and everyone just is like, yeah, okay, don't walk there. It's not a big deal. But it is so important to the human body. And I think that's part of where we get so much of the heaviness and the problems that happen, is that we have packed all of these beings into cities with no green spaces for them. We don't give them they're not able to access the support that they need, you know. It's not easy. It's incredibly difficult to move from a space of density without extra help. You know, we've all had help, right? Each one of us here has had help along the path. So many beings in so many dimensions who've reached out a hand or a wing or a paw or whatever and said, let me help you right now, you know. And I feel that in nature, in any way, like if you live in the city and you can't get to a park or you don't have a garden, have some plants, you know. Do some research on like what are great plants for low light or that aren't going to poison your cats or whatever, because I have cats that like to eat plants, so you know. But I mean, I've lived in cities and it was hard on my body. It was hard for me, you know. I missed it. I missed the green space, but I knew that I missed it because I grew up with it. Right? If you've always been in a city, you're not even knowing that you're missing it.
Yeah.
So get some more plants, you know, and talk to them, take care of them, and they will respond, you know. That's a way of inviting that green world energy into your home, which is so much a part of what the dragons are. As Satara was saying, like the ley lines are that organic support grid.
I love that.
It's just a different word, you know, whatever word you want to call them.
I'm aware that we're coming around on your timing and keeping, I know we've got you here just for a few, maybe 15 more minutes.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Okay. Because I don't want to miss two things. We're going to end up with talking about some of the things that you have that people can come to you for individually or in a group setting. That's great. But before I do that, and I want to ask you two things. How were you awakened to your connection with dragons, Aodaoin? When and how?
I've always seen them. Like I've always had a connection with them. I don't remember a time. Well, that's not true. That's not absolutely true because I did shut it down for a while. But certainly as a young child, I would see dragons. I would talk to them, you know, with just naturally like little kids do, you know. As I got older, I realized that wasn't a very normal thing. So I would say as I had, you know, I sort of went into my teen years, I just said I was going to just stop. And I feel like it was also part that I was a very sensitive kid and it was just all too much. It was becoming too much for me. You know, I didn't have a way to properly deal with it. It just wasn't, you know, I grew up in a very loving, supportive home, but it wasn't something that they knew anything about, you know. So I definitely shut it down for the teen years. And then when I went away to college, something shifted for me in just, I think probably like for most young college age people, just you're exploring, you know, who you are away from the family unit, you know, in a way that I hadn't done. And with that, I started to actually train in Reiki. And as soon as I started, the dragons were back. And again, for quite a while, I would just call them my guides. You know that useful term? My guides. Say.
My counsel, my guides, my team.
My guides, yeah, my team. Yeah, you know, and even in the early days of working with people, you know, working with clients, when I was doing energy work, I would, you know, just call them my guides, you know. Occasionally my angels, because that was a little more socially acceptable. But it really got to the point where I felt like it wasn't being authentic. These people were coming to me and in just a very vulnerable place, and I wasn't being my authentic self with them, because I wasn't saying, there's a giant dragon here that would like to help you. You know?
Think when I have to mention the antids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Or the mantids. Yeah.
yes.
Don't worry, we know.
Yeah, the elephant in the room. So I started saying it, and it's saying it to a couple of people who would just maybe do like the slow blink, but they were, it was okay because they were trusting me. They were in the space,
Slow blink.
Yeah. Okay. But we would just, we were able to kind of move into a space of trust, and then it just became, right, these are the beings that are choosing to work with me. This is a frequency that I hold in my own, as part of my lovely energetic makeup. There is a dragon frequency, and that is why I work so well with them, and we just have a great ease of communication. And so I just decided to go public with it, and this guy did not fall.
I love that. That origin story is very important to our kind, because we are grappling as a people, as a collective, with how the social acceptability issue, even within our families and our friendships, and then of course among our clients, that we're beginning to I sort of envy you, the dragons, because I'm like, well, now see, I think I could say that.
Right, because that's where we are now, you see, but like 10 years ago, it was like, right. We hadn't even had Game of Thrones yet, right? There was no,
So I know, but I could totally get it.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to ask you on behalf of our listeners today, before I ask you to talk about some of your offerings, is if, as a takeaway, I liked how you talked about folks who don't have quite as much access to nature, or if they want to bring nature into their homes in the way of plants and really begin to connect with their the plant world in their homes. Oh, I have so much going on in my head that wants me to talk about plants. I'm like, this is not that show. It's again, people, we only have so much time. They're like, oh, he's going to talk about plants. Okay. So how would you recommend, if someone, because our listeners are somewhere between early adepts, beginning into their adepthood, so to speak, or they're not usually crashing wide awake all of a sudden. They're coming on board. They've had a little more experience. But they don't know about how to connect with dragons, or haven't thought of that. What would be a couple of things you'd like to leave people with from that perspective, as if you'd like to, for yourself, explore a relationship with dragons? What would you offer? Just to say to them, just.
So I would begin by just saying, I'm going to circle back to what Satara brought up. Just like you would with welcoming a physical being into your home, you're not going to, I know I say this all the time, but you're not going to open the door to just anyone and say, come in, sit down, I'll make you tea, have a seat, let's chat. So don't do that, with spiritual beings either, and I realize this is like, maybe just sort of basic 101 stuff, and a lot of your listeners might be like, oh my God, we know this. But I do feel it's especially important to reference with dragon energy because of the draconian element, and because of the fact that there are some draconians that will try to pretend that they are dragons. And I don't want to scare anyone, and I'm not trying to be put people off in any way. I think connecting with dragon energy is one of the most beautiful things you can do for yourself. But I just want to give that awareness, to give that sort of heads up, that if a being is telling you that they will help you to be more powerful, that they will help you to, hurt someone, that they're going to, make you invincible, or whatever sort of slightly iffy thing is there. We'll put iffy on it.
I like iffy.
Yeah. Then that's not a dragon energy. So what I always suggest for people who are just starting out connecting with dragons, and indeed even for people who are quite adept with it, is you ask, I would love to connect with a dragon of the highest and optimal frequency who would like to connect with me. Because that sets a very clear intention in place. You're asking for a dragon, you're asking for the highest frequency, and the draconians cannot pretend to be that, and they are bound by spiritual law. They cannot just come in there and be like, if you say I'd love to connect with a dragon, and a dragon-ish being appears, they haven't broken any rules. They're very good at manipulating that, right? But if you're asking for a dragon of the highest and optimal frequency, so you're asking for a being that's going to work well with you. If you're in a really vulnerable state, maybe a fire dragon, as we said, is not the being to work with you. Maybe you would be just so supported by like a lunar dragon, or a dragon of Kuan Yin, or a dragon of the Merlin. Maybe that's a being that would be just amazing to come in and support you right now. And it's a collaboration. It's always an exchange. If they're offering you guidance and love, you ask for them to be blessed with divine love, divine healing in return. You offer them that gift back. You ask that Source bless them, because that's a gift that you can give. You can say, please, Source, God, whatever your words are, bless this dragon being with my thanks, with my gratitude for their support and their love. Whether it's something as simple as, please, I need a really good parking space, which is a request my dragons get a lot, because I'm a horrible, god-awful parker. I have not parallel parked since my driving test. Right? Okay. I'm one of those that will circle. I'll circle. You could be in that car circling for quite a while till I find a spot I can pull in. But so I'll ask. They can help you with something as mundane, but life enhancing, as not worrying about, I don't know where I'm not going to get a good parking spot, and I have to be there at a certain time. From that to moving into, please help me to embody my light. Please show me where my gifts can flow through easily and with grace. How can I manifest my light in the world in a way that is uplifting for myself and for others? It's such a wide spectrum once you begin that work.
That's beautiful. And as you were speaking, and I let myself kind of say to myself on my interior, that invitation, and I thought you'd never ask. I'm like,
yeah.
Okay. Beautiful.
Things are going to get very interesting in your house.
They already are, so it gets crowded. So Tara, anything else you want to ask before we, or say about this to bring us home, before we ask Aodaoin to tell us about her, how to get in touch with her projects, etc. Anything, C?
Well, that's what I wanted to touch on, really. I wanted to know, we've heard that you offer services. We know that you've referenced clients. So tell us what we would expect. If I came to you and say, right, I need some help with XYZ, where would that lead me with you?
Right. Well, I offer two different spaces. There is the healing space, where we call in the dragon energy for healing energy, and there's some guidance that will come through as part of that. And then there is because some people aren't necessarily looking for healing. They just want to talk with the dragons and get guidance and get their perspective. And I always emphasize, it's a perspective. Don't elevate other beings' perspectives above your own as well. But take all the information then and assess it and look at it and see what lights up, what seems exciting or fun, so then those people would come for a reading. So I would do a reading with them. And then some people just want to come to the dragon transmissions, which I do once a month with a different group of dragons. I never, I always have to try and sit with them and say, I need to let people know we need a plan, sometimes. So I have tried to get them a little bit more on board with that, because it was like the week before, okay, it's going to be the rainbow dragons. But that is always really fun as well, to hold that space for a group. And it's amazing the different energies that will come through like that, So I've done that. And then I thought, well, I'll do some recordings for people as well. So if someone doesn't necessarily want to work with me personally, but they'd like to connect with the dragons, there are some recordings that they can access to just connect, to help with. I always ask the dragons, how can we best support people? This isn't just about like, hey, this is dragon energy. This is about what transformation can we bring for people so that they can embody their light more fully? This is about what service is there. So there's different recordings. Some of them are for helping people relax, to connect to joy. A lot of people told me I put them to sleep. So we said we do one for sleep specifically. So that we have one for sleep. And then one of my own journeys in this life has been with vibrational essences. I started off with flower essences, and now we make essences with the dragons, with the dragon energy. So those are also available, because I feel it's very important that people have lots of different ways to connect, right? That there is a wide way to connect with this energy, because everyone is different. And some people might just want to dip their toes in, they just want a little taster, and others want the full experience. But no matter what, the dragon energy is going to help, right? It's going to support them in being the light that they are, in being the magic they came here to be. That was the line that the dragons gave me many years ago. And I had a business coach at the time who said, that's a terrible, terrible tagline for your business. People are not going to know what you mean. They won't know what you do. And I was like, well, I don't think I can be more specific than that. Be the magic you came here to be. That seems pretty clear to me. And I think it'll speak to the people that, that want to work with me. So I stuck to it, even though she really wasn't happy, but I did, because it came direct from the dragons. That line came direct from the dragons. And I know I just said, don't put their guidance above your own, but it resonated so much with my own heart. It resonated so much with my own journey, with being the magic that I came here to be. And I'm still evolving in that, just like you are, like we all are. Because I think that's part of the magic of being here, is that adventure, and sometimes it's like Mount Doom, and sometimes it's amazing, and that's the joy of it, and that's the beauty of it.
That's beautiful, and I appreciate you sharing that. And Sitar, perhaps what we can do is get the details that we will include in the write-up for SoundCloud.
Totally.
For you all listening here today, we're at standstill right now with our YouTube channel. There are about 10 or 12 shows, I think, that are still, they're sitting there from this last year. So if you'd like to catch up and you actually like to see the two women who are talking about these things on Esoterics today, we're still there on YouTube. But you'll also, of course, find us on SoundCloud. You'll find us also on our Facebook page at Esoterics Today. Just ask to join. We'll be glad to have you there. And certainly Satara's Temple of Stars, you can find us there too. And I'm at the Suburban Lightworker. So I hope this has been informative for everybody in terms of what is dragon energy and what do we mean by dragon energy and the alchemical, transformative nature, magical nature of dragons. I think, Adean, you were a delightful teacher to us today. I really appreciate your time and your intention to share and to teach. I'm very grateful to have met you and spent this time with you. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute delight. I've just loved it. Thank you.
And Satara, I will turn to you and ask you to close us up until our next installment, which are typically month to month. So see you next month. So Satara, you take us away.
Hey, I will indeed. Thank you so much for taking the time with us. Really, really appreciated it. I'd been nagged for about the last 6 weeks that we needed to deal with dragons. And I was like, that's fine. We'll deal with dragons. I know who I'm going to ask. Just let the time be right for us to come together to record. So yes, I was really excited because I knew exactly who I was going to come to. I know a lot of dragon workers across the world, pretty much on every continent. But, you know, for the mix with ourselves here today could be no one but you.
Thank you so much. It's been an
Very
absolute
blessed
joy.
to have you.
Absolute
So
joy.
I will wrap the show up and say goodbye to everybody. Thank you very much for listening to us ladies again. And we will be back next month to come and join you again. So we will speak soon. Take care. Bye.